Well, hello everyone. Welcome to week 7 of Emerging Tech. I hope you're all doing well. I am doing well. I'm a little bit wiped out this morning though. Last week was crazy and I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. Last week of school, so finals. As you know, I'm yearbook advisor, so I was doing the yearbook disbursements. We had graduation and then of course cleaning the classroom out for summer. And then this weekend, my mother-in-law is leaving her home in the valley to come down and live with us, which is lovely. But my husband and I had to start moving her house. And let me tell you, I am sore. That's a lot of house there. And it was about 107 in the valley on Saturday, so a little bit wiped out. And then, of course, Father's Day. And so now today I'm here. And I always think it's funny, the first full day of vacation, I currently now have a cold. And isn't that the curse of the educator? We always seem whenever we have downtime, that's right when we get sick. So a little bit under the weather, but happy to be into summer and ready to relax with my family. And I hope you are as well. I have enjoyed looking at your technology presentations this morning. I spent the whole morning with your work and just really great stuff. And everybody did a wonderful job, but there was just a couple things that I wanted to talk about based on the presentations. You know, I am 52 this year, and so I remember the time period Paul had brought Star Wars into, several people had brought Star Wars into their videos, which is always great. But Paul had brought up Princess Leia as the hologram. Because his presentation was on the screens that are not really screens anymore that we're starting to see in technology. And so anyways, he'd brought up the hologram of Princess Leia, and it took me back immediately to being 13 years old, and I was in London at the time, and I was very fortunate to be able to go to the London premiere of Star Wars. It was a big deal for me. And I remember seeing that and just, you know, was so far off in the distance, that type of technology, and reading Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles and the things that he created that are now reality, and HAL in 2001 A Space Odyssey, all of these things, and it's so amazing. And I remember 2001 seeming so far away back then, and here we are with all this immense emerging technology and technology that's being used on a regular basis now. And it's just interesting to see how fast it was moving. And somebody brought up, gosh darn it, I forgot to write down their name. I forget which one of you it was. It was one of my women. But you were talking about the advancements in technology in the 1800s and how fast it moved for a period of time and then kind of mellowed out. And you were interested to think, is it going to move that fast now and then mellow out a little bit? So only time's going to show us what's coming. Debbie had a really great idea about using VoiceThread for the flipped classroom. And if you're not familiar with VoiceThread, go online and look up their website and you read about it, because it would be very easy to implement into a flipped classroom lesson, and it's a great way to make an interactive discussion, more like a college seminar of the past, where everybody could sit around and kind of talk and work through things and discuss and debate. And I think that's a brilliant idea to add to flipped classroom. And David, your video of you talking, you did such a great job. You're very personable. I'm sure everybody that's looked at your presentation noticed that, and I loved when you talked about robotics and being a tech geek, because I get that. And how fun will it be to have a robot in the classroom? I think I would love that. I tell the kids all the time, back to Paul's hologram, I tell the kids all the time, you know, I'll tease them about dying one day, and me dying one day, and they'll be like, don't say that. And I'm like, it's okay. You're going to have a hologram of me in the classroom, like Tupac on stage at Coachella. And they're just like, kind of look at me like a minute, like they're not sure what to think. But then at the same time, they're like, wow, that could really happen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with teaching and technology over the years as well. Lindsay had brought up virtual reality, VR. And I've had the good fortune of being able to experience some of the VR eyeglasses, the really heavy tech ones, and they're pretty neat. If you haven't gotten a chance to explore that yet, the one that I went on was I was underwater in sunken ships, almost like battleships or something like that, swimming around and sharks coming up to you. And for me, I tend to get a little funky with the motion that it creates, the illusion. And they're actually working in technology now to fix that for people that do get motion sick or get sick when they're using VR. So once again, we have technology moving forward. And Abby, you had talked about using the lesson that you saw with the 3D printer, where students were using 3D printing, which I thought was just fabulous, since we did that in class and then you actually got to view that. And for those of you that haven't looked at Abby's presentation yet, she put in this really great video clip, the 17 best uses of 3D printing. And I suggest that you all look at it because it really is a wow. The first one starts off with a bald eagle that poachers shot its beak off, and they were able to create a 3D prosthetic so that the eagle could actually go out and live a normal life again. It's really, really interesting what they can do now. Amy, you brought up using Pear Deck, and once again, Pear Deck is great too. If you like VoiceThread, you might be interested in Pear Deck, or vice versa. Pear Deck, once again, makes things interactive, collaborative, which we want to see more with students. And when you do brain-based, we will talk about collaborative learning and how it really advances retention of academics with students. And then Kimberly, you were using Apple 2.0 Classroom. And if none of you seen that, that's a great way to keep your kids all on task with technology, and a way that you can create a classroom environment where you can see what they're doing on the computers, take control of their screen. There's a lot of other cool things you can do too, but for me doing yearbook, I like to be able to immediately be able to take over a student's screen if I think that somebody is off task. So well done, all of you. And if I didn't mention you right now, believe me, everything you guys did, my whole class was fantastic, and I really enjoyed your presentations. Somebody also had done the self-driving cars, and every time I see anything with self-driving cars, it reminds me of the tech series Silicon Valley. I don't know if any of you watch Silicon Valley. It's highly inappropriate, but if you are a techie or a techie geek or like technology, that part of it is really funny. And there's a character in it who gets trapped in a self-driving car, and this self-driving car is programmed incorrectly and actually takes him onto a packing container in Long Beach to a barge where he's going to end up in Japan. And when he finally gets back, of course, he's horrifically destroyed from this episode of this car taking over and controlling him. But it's fun to think about, and it's interesting to think about the safety implications of technology and how we're going to make that work. Okay, so for today, most of you have already done your discussion board, where you were supposed to put your presentation up on the discussion board and then comment on two peers' work. You were also supposed to write a personal reflection on the discussion board, comment there if you want. And then you were supposed to upload your reflections, your peer reflections, to Blackboard. I know that seems highly redundant. I agree with you. It's highly redundant. And one of the reasons why they have myself and Professor Slater teaching this class this time is because we're revamping this class for the emergency technology program. The professor that wrote the original syllabus for this is no longer with Concordia. And we revamped a little bit of this over the summer, but Professor Slater and I wanted to go through this and really see what was going on and what we could change. So we are actually going to start manipulating our shells from the weeks that we have already passed. Well, manipulating my shell, really, from what I've already taught through week 1 through 6. So if you see some changes or you get some strange emails or something and you're like, wait a minute, that's not one of our assignments, please just disregard anything from week 1 to week 6. That's just me recreating the shell and taking out taking out things that I feel don't really support what you guys are doing, and moving some things around timeline wise to make it better for the next group. And if you have any suggestions, please feel free to email me. You've already talked to me about some things, and that would be wonderful. I want this emerging technology class to be the best one that we can have. So Professor Slater and I are on it. So just be aware of that. Okay, so I do want you to consider the evaluation process this week. And the 3 steps are listed, and you can read this in your paper. But step 1, supporting learning objectives. Step 2, user friendliness. And step 3, quality criteria. You want to look at these things. I want to start with that, and especially where it says pause and consider. But the reason why you want to look at these things is because a lot of times when we get new technology at school, there are people that are up for using it right away, and there are people that don't want anything to do with it, as you already know. And for the people that are up for using things right away, sometimes we just start overusing it or using it, and it's not really, to the best of our ability. And this also goes well with when we're purchasing something. Sometimes we're very passionate about something and we want to purchase it, but then we don't look at the big picture and how often are we actually going to be able to use it, and is it really going to enhance our class, or is this type of tool going to become something that's a burden to us based on financing, licensing, the plant at school, the actual tech construction of the school? Is the system really going to be able to support it? How often is it going to update? Are we going to be able to support those updates on, there's so many things to think about. So I want you to look over the evaluation, and I want you to think about the technology you currently use in the classroom, and also think about what technology you'd like to use in the classroom and how you would do that. And of course, we need to make sure that we're meeting the learning objectives, but we also want to make sure it's user friendly. I think it was Amy that did the music apps in your paper. I'm pretty sure it was Amy. But, and talking about how gaming really gets kids to interact. And I have found that as well too. But one of the problems I had in my classroom this year with the digital textbook is the kids were really interested in it at first because of course they saw it as a game. But then when they realized that they had to really learn how to navigate a digital textbook and that it wasn't lining up accurately because of the size of their screen and the way that it had been programmed and set up, and that it wasn't as easy for them as to have a hard copy right in front of them, then it became more of a chore and a task, and they really had to get to the work to figure out how to use this digital tech program. And so those are some things that we want to look at with user friendliness. And then, like I said, just making sure that you're picking the right thing for the task. I really liked what Debbie said about VoiceThread and Flipped Classroom, as I already said, and I think that's a good way to look at it. She loves using VoiceThread. She's passionate about it, and it blends well with the Flipped Classroom, and so what a great place to use that. Would it work somewhere else? Maybe she'd have to sit down and assess it, or would something else be better for a different lesson? So these are all things to think about and consider. So I hope you have a wonderful week. I'm already at 13 minutes, so I'm going to get offline now. If you need me, go ahead and email me. I'm checking my emails back daily again. Last week I wasn't checking much, but it seemed like everybody was okay. So I am here if you need me, and I want you to have a wonderful week. Okay? Take care.